Okay, this is the final video in the 2020 Wasatch Wildlife Watch training series. In this video, we're going to go through navigating the data sheets that you're going to be filling out during this project. Once again, a huge thank you to everyone that's participating this year. I wish I could interact with you all face-to-face, in person. This is my favorite part of the entire project, so it really kills me that I can't. But thank you so much. This work cannot be done without you. Can't be stated enough. Another big thank you to Wild Utah Project, Mary and Sarah, for putting these videos together and for helping me get through this process. Couldn't do it without them as well. So let's just get right into it. We're going to go up through the setup, check, and takedown data sheets in this video. And so there's a little bit of ambiguity between the check and takedown and setups, but once we go through the setup data sheet, the other two are fairly easy and don't have that much different between them. All right, so with the setup data sheets, you will see this at the top of each data sheet. You'll see this before continuing to the data sheet. Make sure you found the best spot for your camera based on recommendations in that camera installations instructions sheet. Always consult that, and then please fill out the entire data sheet. This will change with each rotation. Your site will change. So site 1, site 2, and site 3, but the visit will stay the same. For your setup data sheet, you'll always have visit 1. All right, the first things you're going to fill out in each data sheet or in each setup data sheet is information on the camera station. So the date, the site ID, and who is with you. When you fill that out, just do month and day, then year in this sheet. And then your site name is just the name on the placard. And then the research team is everyone and the full name. Please put the full name of everyone that comes so that we can keep track of the total number of participants. That's really important for us. That helps us get money for future years. It also just helps us show how amazing this project has become and how many just basically great people we have working on. Okay, the next thing you're gonna record is your GPS location. So that is on purpose. You want to immediately record that as soon as possible. This says go out to the 4th decimal place. If you're using Gaia, it already goes out to the 5th decimal place. And so just basically record whatever is on the Gaia app or whatever GPS app you're using, regardless of how many decimal places it goes out to. There's basically not a GPS device out there that doesn't go out to the 4th decimal place at this point. But just make sure that you're trying to record at least that much accuracy. Go ahead and fill that in right there. Next one is the start time from the time you leave home till when you get back home. And that is so we can keep track of your total volunteer hours. Once again, that helps us show that this project's working, show how much people are working on it. But it's also good for you if you're trying to keep track of your hours, say for Dedicated Hunter or for America the Beautiful Pass or any type of volunteer credit. That is how you're going to get your credit, is through the hours that you record. And please do military time. It makes it easier for us to differentiate how much time was actually in between each. It's a lot easier to go from 11 to 14 than from 11 to 2 p.m. The next one is detection characteristics. This is going to be where you've actually focused the camera on. So your choices here: hiking trail, road, drainage, ridge, wildlife or game trail, and then other. This is where you're actually focusing the camera. So let's say I set it up on a hiking trail that also happens to be on a ridge. You're going to circle both of those. A lot of you will probably find wildlife trails, so you'll circle that. Maybe you're in a drainage, go ahead and circle that. If you're in an urban area, you can write in urban right here if you couldn't really find anything else, or if there is something else interesting you want to record that in the other. Detection distance, this is that walk test that I was talking to you about. So let's say you did your zigzag walk and you found that you were 15 paces away from the camera before it's turned off. That's where you record that 15. You really want to get that distance somewhere between 10 to 35. Anything less than that starts to get into the range where we don't really have that good a detection distance. We're not picking up that many animals. So if you can get it somewhere within that 10 to 35, you're golden. You're in a great range. The next is habitat characteristics. We got landscape type, and you're going to circle all that apply for this one. And so here's some of your categories. You have conifer forest, looks a lot like this. This is basically what most of the Wasatch looks like, is conifer forest. You will find a little bit of deciduous forest, especially if you're in an aspen stand. The difference is conifers are usually the needled trees, and they stay green year round. Deciduous forest, they fall off in the fall, and they have the larger leaves, and they're found closer to water typically because they do require more water to live. Gamble oak, it's technically a deciduous tree, but it gets its own designation because if you spent any time in Utah, especially in the foothills, you'll know that it forms monocultures like crazy. And so if you find gamble oak and that's where you've chosen to set up your camera, just mark that that is a gamble or oak shrub monoculture, and you can then just go on with whatever you're doing. Do not circle gamble oak and deciduous forest for gamble oak, just do the gamble oak and shrub. For sagebrush, this is more for the higher elevations that you'll find this, or in Parley's Canyon, there's actually some pretty good sagebrush areas in Parley's. But other than that, you probably won't come across it. And then riparian, for our purposes, is going to be anything next to the water's edge. This could be a lake, a stream, a creek, drainage, a canal, anything where water's flowing by and getting into that water table, that counts as a riparian area. This is something else entirely. So let's say you have an urban area where you don't think that's deciduous forest. It's not enough. It's not anything that we can classify as that. That is where you would write in on other right here. You would write urban or Liberty Park. And that's basically what that writing is for. All right, so here is an example. Let's say, what would we classify this? Well, I accidentally already told you. This is conifer forest. We see plenty of conifer forest here. Let's say we're setting up the camera right in this area, 100 meters around. That is going to be our designation for this. So when you go out and set up your camera, you are looking at the vegetation that's within a 100-meter radius from your camera's position. So you don't go all the way out into here. It's just 100 meters around where your camera's set up. So if we're set up right here, we've got a conifer forest, and we're on the water's edge, riparian. Next one's vegetation cover. You're going to only circle one of these ones. So here's some examples of designations for these. 0 to 25, very minimal cover. And this isn't vegetation per se, like understory. This is more your canopy. So you can even think of vegetation cover as shade cover. How much shade is in 100-meter radius of your camera site. And so this would be a good example of 0 to 25. I mean, there's hardly any shade within 100 meters. So that gets to 0 to 25. This is a really good example of 25 to 50, where in your direct area, there's not a lot, but within that 100-meter radius, we do have trees that are providing shade. That's a good 25 to 50. Your 50 to 75 is your typical kind of Wasatch hiking trail, where you're usually walking through a forest of some sort, and usually conifer forests fall within that 50 to 75% range, where you still see sunlight hitting the ground in a lot of areas, but most of it's covered. And then your 75 to 100 is your aspen groves, your really dense gamble oak, where there's not a lot of areas for animals to move through. They really only can come through that direct area. That is your 75 to 100. So when we look at this site and we think this is where we're at, how much shade cover do we have in this 100-meter radius? Well, if you guess 25 to 50, you're right on target. Looks a lot like this guy right here. And so, yeah, this is a 25 to 50 designation if the camera were positioned right there. And so you'd go ahead and circle that. The next one is site photographs. These are ones that you just basically check off whenever you do. And so what you do is we're actually trying a novel method that's never been done before, where instead of having you do a full-on understory vegetation survey at the site, all we're having you do is take photos at the site, and then we are using the pixels from those photos to extract the relative greenness within each pixel and get a relative measure of understory density from those pixels. And so all that requires you to do is when you're at the site, you take a photo facing forward, facing backward, facing left, and facing right. So it's just one quick photo. and then you're done. You just check those off. All right, then you're going to turn the data sheet over, and you'll see human and wildlife activity, and these are recorded as zeros or as ones. A 0 is if you detected it, and a 1 is if you did not detect it. And what I mean by detected or not detected is when you get to a site, let's go back a little bit and say this is your site. What you're going to do is within 50 meters of that site, you're going to walk out in each direction and then slowly walk around and back in towards your camera until you get back to your camera. That's called a radial survey. And so you're going to conduct one of those radial surveys, 50 meters out from the camera, and then work your way back in. So you're going to spiral yourself back in, and you're going to record whether or not you find trash, human tracks, or pet sign or tracks, that can be poop or tracks, or anything else. And you're going to write that in. If you see it, it gets a 1. If you don't, it gets a 0. You're going to do the same thing for wildlife activity. So you're going to look for tracks. You're going to look for poop or scat. You're going to look for carcasses, bones, anything dead, or anything else that you can find. This could be like a scratch mark, or, you know, if you're really good, you can find urine scents or anything like that. Go ahead and write in anything you think you can find. And then finally, the last thing is vehicle traffic. You're going to assess vehicle traffic if you can physically see a road from the camera itself. So if you're looking at from the camera, and you don't have to be at the camera's field of view, but if you're just looking from the camera itself and you can physically see a road, you're going to record the total number of vehicles that you actively see within a 5-minute span. And so you set your timer on your phone and you simply count all of the vehicles that you see. This doesn't matter if the road is, 2 miles away because you're at the top of a Parley's canyon, or if the road's 5 seconds away, you're going to record it as if it's the same thing. And if you hit 100 before that 5-minute span, just write 100 right here. That'll be our max value. If, however, you can hear a road and you know one's present but you can't see it, do not record it and just write NA or 0. So like I said, this is the immediate vicinity of the camera. Within 50 meters of placement, you're going to do a radial survey of detection, non-detection. Did you find it or not? Human activity can be garbage, tracks, and pet sign. So here's a quick lesson on the difference between dog and coyote tracks. Dog tracks generally are farther apart and their pads are hardly ever touching, whereas you see with coyote tracks, they're very close together and they're often touching all the time. In fact, these 2 top pads typically sit on top of the 2 bottom pads right there. In the middle lobe, when you see this bottom pad, you see that there's typically 2 lobes on the bottom for a dog and 1 at the top. And there's usually 2 lobes as well for coyote and 1 at the top, but they also typically either have a bump or something that makes this look really straight. So you get more of a triangle instead of this lobey look right here. And so let's go through a little bit of an example. This is a really good coyote track where you see the 2 lobes really close together, kind of sitting on top of each other, what looks more like a triangle instead of the 2 lobes. And then another thing is that coyote tracks, because they sit so close together, they make this nice little star that you can see right here, or you can see this X. That is a really good sign of a coyote track. Here's a dog track, pads much farther apart, not sitting on top of each other, no clear sign of that star, and really, really defined lobes right here, where they don't have that thing in the middle. Another coyote track, thing in the middle, the lobe actually comes out this time. Pads are super close together. You can see that clear, it looks like a starfish. All right, differences between dog and cat tracks. Biggest thing is that the dog tracks, they can't retract their claws, so they're always out. With cats, they typically do retract their claws. Not always, but typically. And then the biggest thing is with that bottom pad, cats typically have 2 on the top and 3 on the bottom, whereas dogs typically have 1 on the top and 2 on the bottom. This is usually the forepaw. So if you're looking at a hind paw, it does change a little bit. But if you find a hind paw, you can most likely find a forepaw as well. All right, so that's for wildlife activity. We've got this would be an example, say from a place in Red Butte, where let's say I came across human tracks, no garbage or pets. That human tracks was caused by research equipment, so I thought I'd write that in there. There was no vehicle traffic. I had wildlife tracks and scat found at the scene, but no carcasses or bones. And the scratch marks, and there was scratch marks at the trail intersection, so I went ahead and recorded that. And this is really good. If you're looking for a good site, you should try to find a site that has at least one of these: tracks, scat, or carcass or bones. If you have a 0 for all of these each time you go out, there's a very good chance that there's no wildlife in that area, and that's why there's no sign to be found. All right, the last thing is your checklist. This is going to be your saving grace. Highly recommend going through this right before you do the placard, because it will go through everything you need to do. Are the batteries in place and charged? Is the SD card in place? Is the setting verified? The date and time correct? Area clear of impeding vegetation? Photos taken at the site. Those are those forward, back, left, and right photos. Vehicle traffic assessed, if it's applicable. If the camera blinks when turned on, that's the 10 seconds of blinking that we talked about in a previous video. If the camera position is correct, check and recheck and recheck and recheck that camera. The camera view, you want to make sure it's out of the sun or swaying vegetation. Complete the data sheet. Make sure the label on the camera is still attached. That's your little sticker. Display the placard or whatever you have instead of a placard for this year. And then make sure to recover those keys. If you're checking every single one of these off, I guarantee you will do all of those steps. If you just go through it half-assed, you might forget something. It's a very good chance. All right, with the check data sheets, there's not a lot that changes. Let's go over the stuff that does. The biggest thing is the reminder changes. The camera should be off when you take the SD card out if you're checking it or whatever. Changing batteries, you want to make sure the SD card is or the camera's off as well. Always check the settings right before turning on the camera. They can reset. They like to do that. So check the date, check the time, check the settings, and please, 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 please fill out the entire data sheet. Once again, this isn't going to change. Visit 2 is going to be with every check. This will, though, with each rotation. Site 1, rotation 1. Site 2, rotation 2. Site 3, rotation 3. All right, everything else stays the same except the checklist in the back. You now have a few more things that you have to cross off. One of them is that the camera's still functioning. Is it a yes or a no? We're trying to keep track of how good our cameras go throughout the entire season. We want this always to be a yes, but sometimes that's not always the case. And so please put if it's working or not. The battery level, that is low, critical, or good. We want to make sure that that's good, but sometimes it's not. For our purposes, low means no bars remaining. Critical is blue light is flashing. If you remember from the other video, that means please change those batteries. And good is at least 1 bar remaining. Then you're going to put how many photos are on the SD card. If you remember, when you turn on the setup mode, that main menu at the very bottom, the first number, that's how many photos are actively on the SD card. So you're going to go ahead and record that. Are there more than 10,000 photos? You put yes or no. And then you finish out the exact same checklist as before. If you change the GPS location, though, because if more than 10,000 photos are present and you decide to move the camera because you're not in a good spot, you can put the new GPS location only if the camera has been moved right here. All right, for the takedown data sheets, only thing that changes, once again, your reminder changes. Site 1, Site 2, and Site 3, they will change, but your takedown will match with Visit 3 every single time. Checklist stays roughly the same, except you don't have as many things that you have to do this time. And then you just want to make sure that you fill this out. Please fill this out. This is critical. That's why it gets this little yellow square. We really need this information right here. We want to keep track of all that. So please fill that out. And so that we can make it so that we know exactly how many photos we're taking, exactly how many cameras are working correctly, what the typical battery level is of each camera. These are all good things to make sure that we improve in years going forward. All right, last thing to remember, please send me all of your site photos. Those are the forward, back, left, and right. You can either text them to me or email them to me. Instead of basically having you use the Google Drive folder, because I can't walk you through that, instead, this year, you're just going to send them all to me, and I will upload them personally. So via email, please include the site name and the visit number in the subject line. And if via text, please include the site name and visit number in the text. But you're going to send all those photos directly to me this year. All right, you'll also see this. Please make sure everything is ready for the next rotation. This will be at the back of your takedown data sheet. You want to switch the SD cards, make sure the batteries are either recharged if you use your own, changed, or have enough juice, and then contact me with any questions or comments. I'm always available. All right, now, very end. Let's talk about some camera trap etiquette. Some do's and then some don'ts with 2 apostrophes, apparently. The do's are, please contact me after each check. This is huge, actually. I am trying to keep track of a lot of people and a lot of cameras during this field season. And so I actually am going to put a requirement that I do have you check with me whenever you go out to set up, check, or take down a camera. And I've done this for the last 2 years. It's worked out beautifully. And so what will typically happen is if I don't hear from you by Friday, I will send you a text asking or a text or an email asking if you have completed your setup, completed your check, whatever. And I will continue to do that every single day until I hear back from you. And so please get back to me as soon as possible. I don't want to be a bother. And you can also just send me a text that very week and just say, hey, I'm planning on going out Saturday. Even if you're saying I'm planning on it, I will count that and I won't basically bother you for the rest of the week. So if you know you're going out on a specific day and you know that's after the Friday when I'm going to start contacting people, please feel free to send me a text or an email and let me know when you're going out so that I can cross you off the list. Because basically I keep track of a list and trying to make sure that everyone's completing every one of their steps. And so I need to check with each person individually to make sure that that happens. All right, another do's. Please talk about the project with your friends and family. I want to get as many people involved in this as possible. We have the fieldwork aspect, but we also have all those photos that need to be looked through. So please let me know if you're interested in getting involved in that or if anyone else is interested in getting involved with that. Let me know if you cannot make a camera check, set, or takedown. I'm okay with it. It's not the end of the world for sure. And so you can definitely contact me and I will make sure that that gets done. Like I said, we do expect that you can complete everything, but we totally get the life happens. And I am more than happy to check, set up, or take down your camera. I'm also happy if you'd prefer for me to go out with you the first time you do it to help you. I can definitely do that as well. I can accompany you during your setup. I can accompany you whenever you'd like, as long as you schedule it with me beforehand. All right, some don'ts. Don't share your photos of individuals or human activity with anyone ever, anytime. We really don't want humans showing up on our website or anything like that. That can get us in really big trouble. It can actually shut us down. And so please do not share human activity or individuals with anyone. Please don't share photos of animals without my permission first, and that just is because of this National Geographic Explorer designation. I have to check everything off with them beforehand. Please share the location of please do not share the location of your camera with others. We want to keep these as secret as possible, at least until they're taken down, because we just don't want people messing with them. And then a big don't is please don't mix your batteries. So if you want to use rechargeable batteries or you want to use lithium batteries, because lithium batteries are actually more powerful, please don't mix the batteries. This can actually short circuit the camera and permanently break it. I didn't realize that until I did it myself, and I broke 3 different cameras on 3 different occasions because I mixed the batteries and short circuited the computer, which I did not think was possible, but apparently it is with these cameras. So please don't mix the batteries. If you're going to use our batteries, please use them. If you're going to use other alkalines, you can mix alkaline batteries like brands, but please don't mix lithiums with alkaline with, a rechargeable, so on and so forth. All right, last thing is this is our self-absorbed, I don't know, constant funding search. We are going to plug for this. If you know of any funding sources that we can apply for, we would love to apply for them. We have done a really good job of raising money for this project, but we always are looking for long-term funding. We don't want to be one that goes from year to year to year. We want to make sure that we have that long-term funding in place so that we can continue this project down the road. So if these are grants that you know of that you want us to apply for, please let us know. We'll do it. We're always looking for new opportunities for collaboration as well if you have a business or anything like that. And even if your work has a grant opportunity or something like that that we can apply for, we would love to do that as well. Last year, we did apply for a grant through one of our volunteers' works, and we won that grant. So shout out to Terracon for funding us this year. It was fantastic. And yeah, so if you hear of anything like that, we'd love to hear about it. Wild Utah Project is also looking for funding for a lot of their projects. And so really just take a look at any of that type of stuff, and please let us know if you hear anything. With that, thank you so much for participating in the project this year. I am stoked to work with each and every one of you. For the return participants, I can't wait to actually be able to see you guys again. For those that are new, I really hope that we get to meet soon. But at the very least, thank you so much for watching these videos, and I hope you have a great time with this project. I will be available during the entire field season, so please feel free to reach out if you ever need anything. Thank you again.